name is Michael Freudenberg, this is Filmmasters. We're now at part 9 of building the Apprehension engine. We're going to finish the framing, so we're going to do the rear frame, and we're also going to put a support into our frame so that we can put our soundboard on there. And then the following video we're going to get into skinning the actual Apprehension engine, where we start to put our plywood on the sides and make it into a box. So let's get into the tutorial. We're going to be finishing off the rear end of our frame for the Apprehension engine. It's going to look like this when we're finished. So first of all, we are going to use the same type of material as the rest of the framing, and we're going to make another support. So measuring in between the two frames like we did in the front, we're going to do and mark this up. And again, we're measuring it individually. I'm not giving you any actual measurements because it's going to be based on your actual box that you've created. So as you can see, I've got it created. We're going to need 3 of these pieces, and we're going to be putting our right angle brackets on them also. So we're going to support the frame at the rear with the same brackets, and we're going to do the one at the top as well. So we'll need 3 of these all up with those correct measurements that are based on your own box. So again, I'm just going to show you where we're going to put the second part, and you can see there's a little bit of a twist in our framing, and again, this is going to make sure it is nice and square, and it's going to allow our box to have no vibrations virtually. And this is pretty much what we're doing when we're building it and gluing it. So I'm going to just countersink with a drill. Again, make sure that your drill bit is not the same thickness as the screw. Make sure it's smaller, so that way obviously when you're putting the screw in, it's got something to grip onto with the material or in the wood when it's being screwed in. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And then once I've done that, I'm going to get my PVA glue. I'm going to make sure I put enough PVA glue on the base before I screw the rear part of the frame in. So I'm going to make sure that we're going to cover the sides on both sides, obviously. So anywhere where the actual wood touches the surface and needs to have glue on it. Now there is other glues out there besides PVA that you could use. However, it gives you the best result, and it's actually quite a cheap glue to get, and it bonds the material really well together. So again, I'm going to make sure that it lines up against the base plate. And I'm going to make sure that it's not overhanging because we want it to be flush. And once we do that, I'm going to put my screws in. I'm not going to show you the full process of me putting the screws in. It's exactly the same as the previous ones. However, I'm going to go in there and just put the screws in there, not tightening it all the way in. I just want to leave it a little bit loose so that once it's in there and I've got it and I'm happy with it, then I would tighten it up. Another thing you need to do is just drill right in the center underneath. So you can put a screw in there, and that is to hold the base to the bottom of that frame. So what I'm doing at the moment, I'm just going to hand screw a screw into it, and it's exactly the same thickness screw as the rest of it. And again, I got a box of these of 100 for something like $3 to $6 thereabouts, so they're fairly cheap. Now once I've done that, as you can see, it's nice and flush against the back. And I'm just going to start to work now on the top part of the frame. Now, when I'm installing the top frame at the very back, what I need to do, obviously, is make sure it's flush against the very top. And the reason for that is because we're putting another soundboard on top of that. And that's where you'll be tightening all your other different sound devices. So you may put sandpaper up there, or a magnet with a little box under it with a few metal parts to give a rumble as an example. And I'll show you how that can be done in another tutorial. However, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the glue where obviously the surfaces meet. So obviously on the 2 ends. Now, another thing you could do, if you're having issues with the wood actually setting with the glue in against it, there's nothing wrong with you getting a long drill bit and drilling through the sides and applying a piece of wooden dowel like we have in the frame in the past, in order to give your frame a little bit more stability. So that's something that you can do. However, in this one, we're just going to screw it in and make sure that the glue has been adhered to. And obviously the screws on the right angle brackets are going to help to support that rear frame. So here I am putting some more glue on it, and obviously I'm going to screw those in. I'm not going to show you the whole process again. However, I'm just going to put those in so that it's almost all the way in. And then once I've made my adjustments, I will tighten those screws in to lock it into place. And as you can see, the glue is starting to squeeze out between the wood, which means that we've got some good bonding going on between. Now our third piece, again based on the same measurements as the other two, is going to be lining up, and it's going to support our soundboard as well as support our reverb tank. So what we need to do is make sure it's nice and flush against the other two parallel sides, and I'm going to apply some glue, and it's going to be exactly the same process on both sides again, and it's just a matter of making sure it lines up. And once we're happy with it, so you can see it's nicely lined up between the top part of the frame, and that way, so when the soundboard goes on there, because the soundboard's actually going to go across the two sides, the front and this rear support. The rear support's also going to assist us when we put our guitar support in there as well, and we'll do that in another tutorial. So we'll probably do that when we're actually building our guitar necks. Once we've got that screwed in, obviously we jump through and we do the other side, and then what you want to do is make sure it's nice and level, and I'm just showing you that it's actually in line with our top part of the actual side bracket itself, and I'll just pan out so you can see where it is. And once we've done that, that is the end of this tutorial. So we now have all our framing done, ready to go, so we can start to put our outside frames onto it, where our skins, our soundboard on the front, the top, and up the very top, and the reverb tank goes in between. There is one other strap we need to put in there, but we'll cover that when we add the reverb tank.
That is part 9 of building the Apprehension engine. So we've built the frame, and in the next video we're going to get some plywood and we're going to skin it, turn it into a box, make it look like the Apprehension engine, and then put all the hurdy-gurdy and stuff like that in there and start making some creepy horror sounds. If you want to become a Filmmaster subby, it's pretty simple. You can subscribe to the channel, you can like me on Facebook and or on Twitter, and until next time, don't just film it, master it.